21 questions and we are live. Hey. I'm your host, IC. Welcome to the Sit Down's 21 question platform. We are inviting guests to come on and ask them as many questions as possible to get to know them if within that hour, within the time that we have allotted. So we're going to have fun, man. We're going to have fun. We have an amazing guest on tonight, Elaine Cunningham Walker. She's going to be sharing with us how we can navigate our children in the best way in relation to education. So welcome in. If you know any parents or if you are a parent to be soon in the distant future, make sure you get involved right now. Tell a friend to tell a friend. All right, we've got a question on the screen right about now. Which room do ghosts avoid? Guests? Becky, how you doing? JK, how you doing? Which room do ghosts avoid? 21 questions, let's get it. I like that beat before. Well, yeah, in the building. Which room do ghosts avoid? Becky, let's see if you know the answer to this. JK, oh, come on, man. You can't just come with the answer like that. How do you know that? Oh, that's annoying. Yes, the living room. Oh man, I thought we was gonna have a long run with that one. People just be guessing. Oh man. I haven't got a backup question. 21 questions. I'm your host, IC, and this is the Sit Down's Insta Live segment where we invite guests on, get to know a bit about them and their brands and their businesses and what they do, and just shine the spotlight and celebrate them. Celebrate them. That's what it's all about. Carol, how you doing, man? Welcome. Becky, are you sure you was about to say that? Are you sure? 21 questions. I am your host, IC. And you can find me on, I'll put it on here, ICIE Music. That is my @. Feel free to follow and say hello. We got Reese in the building. Okay. 3 more minutes. All right. So, guys, make sure you are checking out all the other episodes that we've been doing. We've got about 21 episodes up on our YouTube channel, up on our podcast channels. You can do so via the link in our bio. Click the link and go and check them out. We've had some amazing conversations. Sway, ZZ Mills, William Adwasi, Ramel London, who else have we had? Eddie Caddy, Irene Akbontine. So many awesome people that have shared their stories. Make sure you click the link in our bio afterwards. Check out our YouTube channel. Check out our podcast channels as well. Big up Jeff, my brother, in the building. All right, without further ado, we do not like to waste time. We like to make sure we honor your time. So I'm going to invite our special guest on, Elaine Cunningham Walker. Amazing person doing amazing things for our community, and not just here in the UK but abroad as well. So just to interject, you thought the recording of Sway was gone. It is, unfortunately, JK. But hey, we move. So I'm going to invite our guest on, and we're going to have an amazing conversation. This is unable to join. Marion, welcome. Hello.
Hiya.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I am
just
well.
Want to get the angles right.
You've got to get the angles right.
Got to get the angles right. I don't want to be too far.
No worries.
Because initially I was going to try and do it from my laptop, but it didn't work. So.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Yeah, I've got to do it from my phone. So how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's been a long day. Work, managing my daughter and everything.
Yeah.
But we're alive. We're living. We're kicking. So it's good to be here.
I know. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. We had a conversation. What year was it that we had a conversation?
Oh my gosh.
when we were allowed to
2 years
meet.
ago, 3
Was
years.
that 2 years ago? Oh, wow.
But it was at the library.
Yes. And always remember that conversation because it was short, but it was eye opening, and it was my first time meeting you. And for me, I was like, okay, you know what? This woman has so much in her that I want people to hear and I want people to know about. And you're doing amazing things, and I want people to hear about that and just shine the light on you. So, in a quick, brief elevator pitch, tell us who Elaine Cunningham Walker is.
Oh, wow. So Elaine Cunningham Walker is Forbes featured multi-award winning CEO.
Rewind. Come on, please. Rewind. Come again.
Forbes featured
Forbes
multi-award winning CEO, recently actually featured in Tatler's School's Guide.
Yeah.
One of the first black woman to be featured in, actually. They don't have black businesses in there.
Can we have applause, please, in the comment section? Please. Come on.
Mother of 2 of the top 20 brightest children.
That's
in
right.
the from 5 years ago. And so I started the educational consultancy because I wanted to access certain types of education for our community.
Yes.
And I wanted our children and ourselves to be seated at the table, not as a number, but with an actual voice and an opinion. And that can speak with such authority that people are like, but wait, who's this person?
Yes.
And also I have grown since the business has grown. And so now we're international, and we're supposed to open an office in New York this April, but you know,
Yeah.
we operate in Ghana. We've been asked to operate in Botswana, in Nigeria. Recently, I started in March. I had my inauguration of a mother's network called the Elite Mums Network, which has got a following on Instagram of 10,000.
Come on.
But our account was hacked, unfortunately, like a week ago. Oh, I'm telling you, it's madness. It was hacked about a week ago, but you know, we've got a good following of membership there that we inaugurated that in I'll always remember the date. It was the 13th of March, because that was the day that the Norwegian ambassador said that he had COVID, and everybody ran out of our event like, I've got to go and pick up my kids.
Wow.
But it was a really, really successful event. And over COVID, I realized that, you know, there wasn't much work coming in because nobody knew what was happening with the education scene, right?
Exactly.
So, but I realized that there's a lot of women out there who, they felt very vulnerable. They needed a safe space in order to be who they were, to express their vulnerability, to be nurtured so that they can be confident all over again and achieve things that they've never done before. So I started a small organization, started with like 2 women, called the Sister Circle.
Nice.
And that has grown to, I think, 30 women now. And we're going to have our first conference, virtual conference, in October. And I put in October because a couple of things really, because we've lost quite a few family members due to COVID. So
you personally?
Yeah, our family has lost about 11 people.
What?
So it's been a lot. And so originally we were supposed to have it in September, but you know what? God will have it so good that I moved it to October, because that particular weekend is a funeral for one of my aunties.
Wow.
But October is my birthday month. So it's a really good time to do the summit, to celebrate women. I mean, the speakers that we have on there is literally God. We've got like venture capitalists.
Nice.
We've got like the head of comms for Africa, Action Aid. We've got women, and the theme of the conference is level up. So we've got women that's really going to level you up. So it's all about who's in your circle, who can help you. And I was telling the group of women the other day that if you're in a circle, and in that circle people can't give you £50 when you're in need, you need to change the circle. Like, it's a mess. But yeah, so that's me. That's how I've grown since I first met you. I'm now,
that is nuts.
And my son has started up a stocks and shares company, which I manage. I'm momager over that.
Yeah.
And he's only 16, so yeah.
Come on, please, can we have a round of applause in the comment section, please? And I love that you know your accolades. I love that you know your accolades, because sometimes when we ask people, you know, what is great about you, we've been taught to be humble and to dim our light. but we need to be cognizant of the fact of, cognizant of the amazing thing that we're doing and be able to roll it off our tongue, because other people can do it so well. So
yeah,
a round of applause,
and they can sell themselves, and you
Yes,
look at them, they haven't really achieved that much, but they package themselves in such a way that everybody's sitting there applauding. And usually I'm sitting there like, no, you haven't done that much.
Well, welcome to the 21 Questions platform.
Thank
This is how it works. We get to ask you as many questions as we can within a allotted time. You have one pass card. So you have a card in which you can skip a question. If you don't want to answer that question, you use your pass card. However, if you use that pass card, you don't get your prize. So you got to choose which one, if you want to use that pass card or if you don't want to use that pass card.
Let's do this.
So there's a prize at the end that I have for you. So first we're going to start off with is your quick fire round. You've got 5 minutes to answer these quick questions. Don't think about it too much. Right off the dome of your head, we're going to get cracking. Big up to everyone that's joined us for 21 Questions with Elaine Cunningham Walker. Let's get it. All right. So let's go. So what is your favorite book?
Oh my gosh. I got so many. Oh my gosh, I'm reading about 3 at the moment. Oh gosh. I really like Self-Made. Yeah, I do.
Self-Made.
Like
Who's that by?
Byron and Bianca Cole.
Byron and Bianca Cole. Awesome. Who is your biggest inspiration?
Michelle Obama.
Michelle Obama. Oh, come on. Why?
I think she stands for truth, honesty, power, resilience. Like she's got all of, she's more than a triple threat. She's got everything.
Yeah. Love it. How do you recharge as a person?
How do I recharge? Oh my gosh. Everybody's always complaining that I don't recharge. And so I have had to learn that I might take one day, and a lot of people don't know this about me, but I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis like a year and a half ago. So literally my body tells me when to rest.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when I recharge. But when I do recharge, I tend to sit down, but I sit down with a book and I write. I just write. It might be ideas, it might be thoughts, but I just write. That's
Love it. Beautiful. I like that.
Yeah.
And what's the greatest piece of advice you have ever received? Greatest piece of advice you've ever received?
That not everybody is going to treat you like how you treat them.
Hey, you dropping some gems right about now. Ain't that the truth? That is the truth. Okay, £8 million. Someone comes to you with £8 million to invest in your company. Where would you put it? What would you put it into?
In my company?
Yeah.
Well, I would first take probably half of that and put it in an educational fund that would fund the education of children who don't have the finances to take them through private education, making sure that they go to the right university, get the right start in life, and put them into the right first job. That's where I spend half of the money.
Yeah.
The other half of the money, I would spend it on, oh my gosh, expanding my property portfolio. And I would do real estate. I would do commercial property, and I would probably go into building schools.
Come on, you already know it. That means that £8 million is around the corner. What was your childhood ambition?
When I was young, I wanted to be a dentist, and I actually started as a dentist.
Yeah.
No, I didn't want to be a dentist. I wanted to be a maxillofacial surgeon. And I did 1 year of dentistry, and I said, no, this is not for me, because to be a maxillofacial surgeon, you've got to study dentistry, then you've got to study medicine, and then you've got to get your professional qualification. And I was just like, nah, this is not.
It's too much. It's too much.
No.
Oxford or Cambridge?
Oh, what subject?
English literature.
If it was English literature, I'd go for Oxford.
Oxford, why?
I think Oxford is a more literal university in terms of you get the classics there, you got English literature. If you want to go more of type the engineering side, you'd go to Cambridge.
Cambridge, okay. What will you put on this earth to do?
My purpose. Wow, I'm only just discovering my purpose. And I speak to mothers and I speak to women and I speak to children to change destinies, to realign destinies. And I do that through the power of I speak from my spirit. And that's what God has given me. Like, I might not have been given a mic to preach, but I know that God has placed something inside me and I always say to people that you can't come into my presence and leave the same. You've got to go with a difference, new mindset, something different. Something's got to change about you.
Loving this. You got 52 seconds. Favorite holiday destination?
Favorite holiday destination? Hawaii, Honolulu.
One day I will go. Amen. What gets you angry? What gets Elaine angry?
When our community just don't try and they give up too easily, that gets me really angry. And also people who lie. Can't stand people who lie.
What's your biggest life lesson so far?
Biggest life lesson? That everything happens for a reason.
I'm still trying to learn that one.
Yeah, no, everything happens for a reason, and God turns it around for your good, literally. Literally.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. 7 seconds. Favorite music artist?
Oh my gosh, Beethoven. I like classical.
yeah, me too. I play classical. My wife is like, "What is this?" But it's so calming and like, it's so away from what I'm, hip hop or whatever I listen to.
Yeah. I mean, I do play. I have got like different genres, but classical music. And actually, if you've got a child, classical music helps them with the development.
I heard about that. Yeah. See, I tell my wife that.
I've got 2 children who are musicians, so there you go.
Awesome. Big up to everyone that has just joined us for 21 questions. If you've just come into the room, this is the Sit Downs Insta Live segment where we get our guests on, learn much more about them behind the scenes. And we have Elaine Cunningham Walker in the building. She's sharing some gems just in the quickfire section, and we ain't even got started. So let's get into the meat and the bones. Tell me about your experience of going to private school and how that kind of shaped your mind for what was going to come ahead.
Going to private school. Gosh, so I went to private school from the age of 2.5. So that's all I really knew.
2.5. Wow.
Yeah.
Which one did you go to?
So I went to, it's no longer there anymore. So I went to prep school that was called Somerville. It was in Streatham Hill. And I loved it there. And then I went on to Streatham and Clapham. Well, it was at the time when I went, it was called Streatham Hill and Clapham High School, but now it's Streatham and Clapham. And Streatham and Clapham is part of a group of schools called the GPDST schools. Well, it used to be called that, but it's now called the GDST schools. And basically, they're the biggest group of girls' private schools in the UK.
Wow.
And they were set about because at the time, when you got like the suffragettes, women weren't allowed to vote, they weren't allowed to work, they weren't allowed to do anything. So they started this organization because they wanted to make fearless girls, into amazing women. And if you look at what's going on, like I turn on the TV and I'm like, I went to school with her. Cressida Dick went to one of my schools, a sister school. So it used to be just in the UK, but now we've kind of spread all over the world, and we have a network. When I got a letter the other day, we have a network, I think there's about 12 million of us all over the world scattered. And it's amazing to be part of that network, because you go somewhere and people say, what school did you go to? And you'll say, GPDST school. And they go, oh my gosh, which one did you go to? So it's so strange because of the work that I do. I sat down and I was talking to a school, but they didn't have the word high in it. So traditionally, each one of the GPDST schools had the word high in it. So I was down and I was pitching, and this one was talking, and I'm just like, wait, is this a GPDST school? She was like, yes. And I said, don't worry, we don't need to sign any contract. I'll bring you clients. It's fine. Wow. Because just automatically, it's like being in a sorority. Automatically, you just have a synergy because the girls were brought up in a certain way. There's a certain mannerism. I mean, when I went to school, whenever the headmistress walked in the room, we had to stand up. It was very traditional. I don't know if it's like that now. They did invite me back as one of the trailblazers to come and inspire the girls that are in there. But to be honest, I know a lot of people have said that they had a really bad time in private school because of the color of their skin. I had a mother who was not going to, no, she was not doing that. So
She was not doing that.
So she always had my back. So I don't
Mm.
think I really saw anything. The only thing that I did see that I thought was ridiculous was that because there were so few of us in school, we
Yeah.
all kind of get together. And the moment we walked together in a group, we were a gang. But
Wow.
like there was only 4 of us, and we weren't even all black. It was like 2 Asians and 2 blacks. And they said, "Oh, the heavy mob is here," and I was just like,
Wow.
I don't even know what the heavy mob is. Like, I don't know what that is, because that's
Yeah.
how I've been raised, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a really great experience, and coming out of that, it's been really good to sort of like say, you know, I've got a few friends that read the news, and I sit there and I'm like, you know, we were in the same class. I went somewhere today and I was like, oh my gosh, I went to that school as well. And because I don't look my age, they were like, oh, did you leave like 4 years ago? And I was like, no, I
No.
left 20 years ago. They're like, what? You know, but I had a really good experience, and what it taught me, and the headmistress I had there, even though everybody looked at her like as a Margaret Thatcher, an Iron Lady, what she taught us as girls was that you never take no for an answer. You never give up. I mean, in the face of everything that I've been through, I could have just gone, you know what, life is just too hard. Like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But one thing I learned was a no today might be a yes tomorrow.
100%.
And so I've learned that you just keep going till you get that prize. And maybe I'm doing it the wrong way. Let me try it this way. Let me try it that way. That's what I learned from there. And I also learned, because it was an all-girls school, I learned how girls think. Like, I see what's going on before you even start. Like, it's really interesting. So I tend to have more male friends than I do female friends, just because girls can be really interesting. I'm sure.
Let's just use that word.
Girls can be really interesting.
I love that.
Yeah.
You talked about it taking you, you know, that kind of mentality has taken you through kind of the hardest situations, and you went through a divorce. How was it going through that period? Because a lot of people, let me use that generalization. Some women, they embed themselves in the marriage so much so that after the divorce, they can't place who they are, because the marriage was the dream, the goal, and that union was not all they had, but it was the sum total of who they thought they were. How did you go through that transition of a divorce, but then still finding who you were?
To be honest, I was one of those when the dream was, you know, everybody looked up to us like perfect couple. I was like 5'2", he was 6'4", you know. I think it was 6'6", but when I got divorced, I was devastated. And one of the reasons I just couldn't get myself together
You're
was
breaking up a
because
bit.
my parents were the epitome of like marriage myself. And I was so confused. And you're right, I didn't know who he is, but we were married for 9. And I said, this has been me. And it did take me a very long time. I'm not going to lie. I went down a very strange part in my life. And I'm sure there are some people on this call who would feel like that. But what that did was it gave me clarity to understand that I didn't ever want my children to go through that. I wanted to build them in such a way that they would stay regardless, because he was coming from a home where his dad had married 4 times. And
you're breaking up a bit.
So for him, he was like, well, if it's not working, let me just bounce. You know, through, they would just say, okay, it's not great right now, but we're going to work through it. And so they had that mechanism to be able to deal with things. And so when I came out of that, I was just like, well, I was also told when I was younger that I couldn't have children, right? So I said to God, like, I got these 2 children. It's me and you. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And slowly, you know, my ex-husband left when my first child was 6 weeks old.
Wow.
And that same child is going to be 70 in November. And so when I see him, I'm like, wow. But he always says to me, or he says to my mum, you know, mum is one of the ladies that I know that works so hard. And I work so hard because I don't want them to ever feel that they're coming from a single parent family, ever. You have all the love you need. You have all the role models you need. You have the ability to achieve. You're not going to let anything stop you. Those circumstances that happen, that you happen to be born into, they are not going to define you. And that's what I had to say. That's what I had to say about myself, that everything that I had been through, and for a long time, I couldn't even tell people I was divorced. I would tell them that my ex-husband worked in America, because it was easier to say that than to talk about I was divorced, because then I would break down. Now, and they say that your purpose is your pain, right? Your pain births out your purpose. Now, when I talk about my divorce, I talk about it from a place of strength, that I probably would never have been the woman that I am now if I had stayed in a relationship. So when people see me now, and even it's really strange, I still see my ex-husband and I'm like, did I really love that? Like, what was wrong with me? But it's because I have moved so far ahead, you know, so far ahead. So, my good friend said, yeah, you did. Yeah, I did. I have moved so far ahead that I'm very focused about what I want, what my children want, you know. So when I'm thinking about generations after me. And so I always said that I wanted my children to have a surname that opens doors for them. So when you have the surname like Guinness, right? When you walk in, you know that you're from a certain aristocracy.
Yeah.
So we changed our name, and so I chose Cunningham Walker because I knew that there would be nobody else with Cunningham Walker. I was on a call earlier and somebody said to me, oh, Elaine Walker, would you like to speak? I said,
So no. Let's go
my
back.
name is Elaine Cunningham Walker.
Cunningham
There are
Walker.
many Elaine Walkers, but there's only one Elaine Cunningham Walker, you know. So that's the kind of legacy that I'm building. And I always said that I wanted, you see, like how Donald Trump has got Trump Towers?
Yeah.
I want to have like Walker Towers, Walker Holdings, you know, Hilton. If somebody says Hilton, you know, the kind of family that you're coming from. That's exactly what I want from my generations after me. Got to know that Elaine was here. It's Madam CJ Walker. She just teethed my name, but anyway.
That is, you know what, that's so beautiful, because there are times that we feel so defined by like the things that we go through, and we can't get from under them. And you know that it is possible. It's just that it is a process. It takes time for you to realize who you were then, but who you can be, like in spite of. And me, like for me, I've got this scar on my head, and so growing up,
Do you know what? I thought it was just a hairstyle, you know.
that's what everyone thought. But no, this was from the hospital. There was I was prematurely born by 3 months.
Wow.
And, you know, I had to have an operation on my head. And at such a young age, I was in the incubator. And so there was an operation that had to be done on my head. Either I was going to die or we've got to do this operation. And the scar it left just continued to, as I grow because of my scalp, it would expand and expand. And I remember in school just thinking, how come nobody else has got this? Like, well, come on, man. And I realized quickly that it's either that this scar is going to define me or I have to define it. I've got to be in front of it and I've got to shape its narrative. And I think what's happened over the years is this is my superpower. And there was, when I was around 18, I remember my dad said that, you know what, there's an operation that could cover it. Would you like it? So there's a way that they can actually cover it and you wouldn't be able to see it. And it was a defining moment because it was going to I was either going to use that to cover my insecurity or I was going to fight through the insecurity. And I said, you know what? I said, no, this is me. If God wanted to have stopped it, he could have. But I want to be an example that even with a, in quote, defect, you can rise above and do anything, you know. And I do have my good days. I do have my bad days. But we keep persevering through and becoming more, you know, than our circumstances. So,
but, you know,
salute to you.
I always say that those things that we see as insecurities are marks that God has given us for specific assignments.
Yeah.
Because if you look at, you know, Moses said, you know, I can't speak. Yeah, but you're one of the big wigs in the Bible. You know, David was an albino, but God still used him. You know, so I think that I think it's a cultural thing as well, because we're I couldn't talk about my divorce because it was so humiliating. That how could I go into something that everybody knew about, and then all of a sudden it had completely failed in my life. Like, that failure was the biggest thing ever. Like, I just couldn't get over it. But actually, I remember my grandmother saying to me, because my biggest thing was that people are talking about me, and my grandmother was like, yeah, they'll talk about it today, they'll talk about it tomorrow, but they'll find somebody else to talk about after that. But for me, that mindset of people talking about it lasted for years. If I'm really honest with you, lasted for years, and it even lasted to when I had my first child. When I had my second one, I was really struggling in my mind. Like, I cried all the time when I was pregnant, right? But to the point that when my baby came out, he was always crying, and people were like, why does this child cry so much? It's because my grandmother said he's carrying the tears that you cried when you... But to be honest, and I always say this to my mum, that I understand why God gave me that child at that particular time, because honestly, if I only had one child and I didn't have the other one to take my mind off what I was going through psychologically, I probably would have lost it completely. But I use those examples when people say, oh, I can't do it, and then I tell them my story. They're just like, Elaine, why haven't you written a book? And I'm just like, okay, yeah, I know.
It's coming.
I'm going to do a TED Talk, don't worry.
Please.
But the reality is that so often it is hard. It is hard to get out of that, and it is hard for us to kind of identify and think about who we are. But there's something that I always say, and I shared this on a group that I was on the other day, that when I was going through what I was going through, I started to write. I told you that to declutter and to re-energize, I write. So I used to write a lot then. So when I read those journals, I'm like, that girl was in a really bad place, right? I'm not there now. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be, always. And that it's a process. And that what we are trying to aspire to, what we're trying to get to, if we do it the microwave way, what will happen is, if you understand how microwaves operate, they operate by cooking making the water molecules go really, really fast to heat up the food. But you notice that with microwave food, if you don't eat it straight away, it goes really hard and really cold quickly. But if you cook it in the oven, you can eat it when it's cold. You can eat it when it's lukewarm, because it's gone through a certain process. And very often when there's a certain assignment on our life that's so big for us, we have to go through a certain process, and we have to trust that process. It's hard, but we have to trust that process.
Oh gosh. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, I'll be honest, I wasn't having a great day. And then I do this weekly, so
wow.
You know, I do this weekly, so every Thursday. So there can be so much happening before I have to come on to do this. But I've committed, and I made a decision I would do this. And when I'm here, I have to give of myself to the people, so that the conversation we have is one that enriches the people, regardless of what I'm going through. But you know, I thank you that your words are not just for the people, but it's also, you know, for myself. So thank you.
And actually,
you know,
I've had a really tough day today. My day started at 7:00, and I've literally been, I was at the hairdresser's, and I was on a call, and I was this, and I was this, and I was just on a call. And as I was on the call, they said, you've got 1 minute to your live, Elaine. And I'm like, okay, let me get off. I'll get back on when we finish this. But yeah, it's sometimes, you're so right, because I mentor women on a Monday, and throughout COVID, the lockdown, I used to mentor them every single Monday. And sometimes, trust me, I didn't want to go on there. I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody today. But like you said, I had made a commitment that I'm going to go on there, and I'm going to show up for them, because you know what? I might be the only one showing up for them that week.
Yeah, 100%.
to encourage them, to speak to them, to spare them. But then after a while, child, I had to tell them that, listen, I'm giving out. We're only going to do this once a month now. You can WhatsApp me if you need me.
Yeah. I love that. Tell me about your work with Everything's Education, because I love that. I was looking at more of your stuff and what you do, and how you're helping to place strategically and intentionally place young people from less affluent backgrounds in places that they can trampoline off into corridors of power, into the house of Pharaoh. I love that kind of analogy. Tell me about the mindset that is needed from a parent's standpoint and from a young person's standpoint to enter into the house of Pharaoh. And for those who are listening, when we're talking about enter into the house of Pharaoh, we're talking about those, education institutions that are revered, the Cambridge, the Oxfords, the Russell Group universities, places where if you want power, this is where the seed is started. So tell me about what mindset is needed from the parent and what mindset is needed from a student to enter into the house of Pharaoh.
I like that question because it does start with the parent. And so I find myself, parents come to me, I want this, and can I have this, and can I have that? And the first thing I say to them is, why should this school take a chance on your child? And most parents go, oh, because he's good at maths. I'm like, and my mum always says, Elaine, have you ever heard any parents say that their child is stupid? Okay, I get you, right? So I'm like, okay, let's go back a little bit. Let's look at, and I'm a firm believer that every child, when you watch that video in its fullness, in its entirety, I talk about that every child that comes to this earth comes with a gift, and our role as parents is to identify that gift before you get to the houses of Pharaoh, right? The reason why Moses was operating in the house of Pharaoh was because his purpose was to be the deliverer. In order for him to be the deliverer, he had to be trained in the way that the people he was going to deliver people from would understand him. When he speaks, they understand him. When he stands, they understand him. His body language, they understand him. So, for example, if you use me as an example, my name is Elaine Cunningham Walker. Which part of that name says black or African? None. When I speak to you on the phone, you are convinced that you're going to meet, Miss Yellow Skin, Miss White Lady. And then I rock up and you're just confused because she went to the same type of schools that I want my child to go to. So what I do with a lot of parents is there's a lot of reprogramming and re-educating that has to be done with parents. What you find is the children are more resilient, but what happens is because of the way that they've been parented, they're scared about certain things. So one thing is that I like to get children in a stable environment. And for me, boarding school is a really good, stable environment, right? But what's happened is they've been parented in such a way that they've been told that boarding school is a punishment. So the first thing that they get in their mind when you speak to them is, oh, I don't want to go to boarding school.
I don't want to go.
And I'm like, no. And you get the parents that want to tell you, oh, I don't like boarding school. And then my next question is, have you been? Have you been to boarding school? And I don't buy boarding school in Africa. It's totally different. Okay. So have you been to boarding school? No. So then what I do is then I'll find, I like to match the child to the school and not the other way around.
That's beautiful.
So you get
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So you get a lot of parents coming to you and going, I want Eton, I want heroin. And I look at the child and I'm like, that school would eat you up alive. Like, that's not where you need to thrive. I'm all about getting children into schools where they thrive and don't just survive. They have to thrive, because it is in the thriving stage where you build confidence. It is in the thriving stage that you can make friends. It is in the thriving stage that you understand that you want to be the next prime minister of this country. Yeah. But when so you notice that some people go, oh, I hated school. Why did you hate school? I made the mistake of putting my children in a particular school. And when you speak to my youngest son, he never talks about that part of his childhood. Never. His childhood started from when for him, it started from when he went to boarding school, prep school in Sussex when he was 10. That and so the period that he was in that prep school, the other prep school, from the age of 6 to 10, that 4 years, he doesn't want to talk about it. Because he said, the other day I was talking on the phone to a parent and I was telling them about the benefits of a prep school. And then my son was walking past and I said to him, oh, come and have a chat to this client of mine. And he gets on the phone and they were like, so what do you think about prep school, blah, 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 boarding school? And he went, I just have 4 words. It was my childhood. I loved it. I mean, he sold the whole idea. I didn't have to say anything after that. The parents were like, okay, so Elaine, which school are we going for? You know. So there's a lot of reprogramming with parents that I do, a lot of conversations where parents see the fees and they go, we can't afford this. And I'm like, okay, how do you eat an elephant? And they go bit by bit. I said, that's the same way you pay the fees. And then they'll say, oh, I can't do this. And I said, there's 2 of you. There was 1 of me and I had 2 kids. You can do it. You just have to write the vision down, make it plain and plan. That's all. And so when people say, oh, I want to go to Oxford, I meet a lot of young people that are, I want to go to Oxford, I want to go to Cambridge. And I said, okay, which college do you want to go to? They don't even know that it runs a collegiate system. Wow. So I'm like, I don't think you really want to go to Oxford or Cambridge, because the people that do, they knew that they wanted to go to Oxford and Cambridge when they were 5. So it's been a whole long journey. And so all of a sudden you find yourself in a race. Oh, it's because I'm black, or I couldn't get it because I was in a deprived area. No, boo, you didn't have a plan. You need to have a plan. And that's why a lot of parents come to me, because it's through me talking to them that they realize that, you know what, we thought it wasn't doable, but it is.
And you know, sorry to cut you there.
Go on.
And that is one of the biggest mindsets that I guess from our community, from our black community, that we have to get over the hurdle, which is, you know, it's possible. One, it's actually possible. It's just meeting people like yourself who've been on that other side, have surveyed the land, know what the land requires, and comes back and says, hey, you know what? This is what is going to get us over there. How do you want to make that work?
And a lot of times parents think that it's just academics. No.
Wow.
My son is in a school with a guy who's not that amazing, but he's brilliant at sport. Anything he touches turns to gold. Some sports scholarship. White guy from Liverpool on a sports scholarship, and then he doesn't have to pay his fees until he finishes the school. People don't understand that education is about strategy. It's about strategy. I've seen people who, from the time that their child can paddle in the water, they're doing swimming lessons. And at first I was like, I'm not getting my hair wet. No. So then I looked around and I was just like, what is it that's different about my children? I didn't want them to be sportsmen, because you know what? Every black boy is a sports. He can run. He can be in the rugby team. He can be in the football team. I made my children musicians. So between the 2 of them, they play 7 instruments, all at like distinction level. I remember my son got a pass once. That was for grade 1. And I told the director of music, we don't take exams to this. Yeah? What's the point? Because you don't see no Chinese person saying that. You know, so there are so many. There's even ballet scholarships. The other day I saw one for performing arts. So you just need to find the right school. And a lot of times parents, this is where the reprogramming comes in. A lot of times parents go, oh, I just want the school down the road. And so this is the analogy I tell them. I said, okay, you're looking for a bursary, a scholarship. If I told you that a school had come to me and said, we're really interested in your child, but the school is in Scotland, you don't have to pay any fees, you won't take it? Oh, they say, I would take it. I said, so don't tell me about there's a school down the road and you don't want your child to leave the house. Actually, evidence says that children who have that kind of, experience, they're actually more focused in university. They are more organized in university. They can take care of themselves. And even if they don't go to university and they start on the entrepreneurial route or apprenticeship route, they're actually a better candidate than other people.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. Someone said, I feel emotional watching this. You're showing me I've limited what I thought was possible for my kids before I even gave them an opportunity. Beautiful. That literally, that sums up that conversation. The ability to believe is possible. And I think, this year, especially with the whole, I guess, the Black Lives Matter kind of having its spotlight shone upon it.
Yeah.
People have taken a more internal look at themselves and the value and the worth that is within them. And the rising up has been, no, I'm more than.
Come on.
And the rising up in our companies.
Sit on my chair properly.
it's caused us to have an uprising within our own esteem and value and be like, no, I won't take that anymore. I won't take that's okay anymore. No, there's more that, because everybody else is being told that they can attain more. And everybody else is being positioned to attain more. And whereas we get left behind. And I think the more we, not just as students understand it, but the more as parents we understand that, I guess, there is more out there for them, the more we can position them to achieve more. And just like you said, if I can send you to Scotland for free, and you go and school up there, the experiences that you as a child can be open to are much more than if I keep you close by on the estate, just so that you're close to mummy, just so that you're close to daddy.
Close to me. Look, we are, and my mum used to say this all the time, that we are only custodians after these children, these children. And look, you've got one in the background.
Yeah,
when you get up there, there's only two questions that you're going to be asked. What did you do with the gift that I gave you? And what did you do with the child that I gave you?
Yeah. Jeez.
And if you were like, oh, I let them stay by me, and they were meant to be the next Oscar-winning, phenomenon, and they stayed by you, and they were never exposed to anything, how can they be that thing? We've spoken about purpose. How can they be that thing that they're meant to be? I'll give you an example. My youngest son, from day one, this boy said he was going to be a doctor. He was wearing a coat, and he'd be like, if you don't call me doctor, I'm not answering you. And the boy won a drama scholarship. And I always used to think he was just over dramatic. Like, what are you doing? Won a drama scholarship. And he said to me, Mummy, when I'm 16, I want to go on The Voice. Listen, I've got Ghanaian blood going through my veins yet. I was like, you say what? What? You know how much fees I pay for you you want to tell me that you want to go on The Voice? You want to do drama? But at the end of the day, it is the drama that has opened doors for him. The Bible says that your gift will make room. And so I had to understand that, and I had to nurture that gift and say, you know what, if it's drama. So that's why he goes to a school 6 hours away from us, because that's where he won the drama scholarship. And actually, if we didn't have COVID, if we didn't have lockdown, he was supposed to be at Juilliard in Geneva with amazing people from all over the world. And then he was asked to play in the symphonic orchestra in, I think, Yorkshire. So for me, he's been exposed to so many different things that I probably wouldn't have been able to think about. What I did think about was to teach him to play the right instruments. So I'm going to give your viewership something for free. If you want your child to learn an instrument and you want them to be different, please, for the love of God, don't let them play the violin, the flute, the clarinet. Those instruments do not take you anywhere. You need to go online and look for the endangered species group of instruments. When you look at those instruments, there are 5 of them: the double bass, the French horn, the oboe, the the viola, and the bassoon. These 5 instruments. Let your child pick up one of these, and trust me, even if one note, they'll be in the orchestra. You know why? Nobody plays them. And so what I say to children who are about 3 or 4, start on the Suzuki. I was telling one family this yesterday. They were like, Suzuki, what's that? We know violin.
I don't even know what the Suzuki is. What is that?
You know, And the Bible tells us that my people perish for lack of knowledge. The reason why we're not moving on as a community is that we don't have the knowledge, and nobody will tell you this. I'll give you another example. When my children were at school, you know how, you know, everybody would be playing the piano and be like, oh, they're so good. Oh my gosh, they're so good. Everybody's having half an hour lessons at school. How come you're better than me? No. So there was this lady, she was like my mentor. And my mum would tell me, no, Elaine, you've got to have lessons at home. And this Nigerian lady pulled me one side and said, listen, those people are having lessons they're having lessons at home. I was like, how? She gave me the number of a Korean piano teacher. We started having lessons, I think when my oldest was 5. Started having lessons. We'd have 2 hours a week. 2 hours a week, and then have the half an hour at school. And then my sons started busting up lyrics on the piano at school. And then they would go, oh my gosh, how comes he's so amazing? I said, you know what? It's just a gift from God. We can all play that game. But you have to be, you talked about positioning. Be strategic, position yourself. What we tend to do is we tend to allow the system to move us rather than us moving the system. Both my children, I put them back a year. They're my kids. They're going to do exams when they want to do them. So my son, when he was 10, did his maths GCSE. And everyone was like, oh, he's not 16. He can't do it. I said, who told you this? I can enter him to do it. So when he was in year 8, he was really sick. So that whole year, he couldn't do his common entrance exams into senior school. So the normal... The friends around me that don't really know were like, oh, he needs to go into year 9 because he's going to be too old. I went and I spoke to my son's headmaster. He was at a prep school in Sussex. The headmaster said, we'll have him back for another year. And do you know what? That 1 year, the boy got the highest mark in maths in the country. So we have to set a precedence for our kids. We have to set a precedence for our kids, and we can't allow people. So when COVID started, and you know, all the children had to go online, I got a report from my son's tutor that said, oh, you know, your son hasn't taken like a duck to water. I said, God, give me wisdom. So I asked him, I said to him, can I ask how old you are? No disrespect, can I ask? He said, oh, I'm 55. I said, how did you feel when you had to go online and have meetings with your colleagues? He said, I found it really tricky. I thought it was hard for me. I found it really uncomfortable. I said, and you want a 16-year-old to take over just like that? I said, please do not send me those kind of emails. What I want emails that are productive. They're solutions. They come up with solutions. I don't want to hear he's this, he's that. And what happens is when we as parents get those kind of reports, we start to believe them and we chastise the child. And actually what we should do is questioning the teacher to say, actually, you have an educational right that you must make sure that my child knows X, Y, and Z. If you don't, we need to find out what's going on.
Damn. Elaine, I've got, yo. Hey, caramba. All right. Do you have more time?
Yes,
all
yes.
Right, we're gonna do a part 2 of this. Right, I'm gonna end this one because I've got like a few more minutes, and we're gonna carry on part 2. This is some serious stuff. Even that thing that you just said, because there's this thing that as parents, when we're called out regarding our children, there's 2 ways you can go. You can either
make it emotional,
challenge that, or you internalize that. And that internalization can turn towards them and be projective. What's wrong with you? Why are you not engaging on the online? But the reality is like, well, because it's hard to adjust for all of us. And that teacher might need some insight from home. He doesn't really work with online, so you might need to do this, rather than us projecting it onto the child. You know what? I'm going to end this live and we're going to start part 2. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to end it right here, and then we're going to just join us on the live. Just join us. This is beautiful.